Welcome to a new edition of the Neon Jazz Interview Series with veteran Bay Area jazz bassist Dewayne Pate. We talked about his 2023 album On the Upside and a good life lived in music. Born in Richmond, California, in the cradle of the East Bay funk, he started playing bass at the age of 15. In 1980, he moved to Los Angeles, where he attended the Musicians Institute, then returned back to the Bay Area. He's been around many talents and continues to shine and evolve. Enjoy this interview.
Great to meet you. Thanks for taking a minute out.
Sure.
So before we get into the brand new album, which from my perspective on things, it's so good to see that musicians are out and about after this, absence of live music and recordings for a while. So I'm curious, how did you survive the COVID time period, and how has it changed the way that you do things now that the world's opening back up?
Well, I spent most of my time during COVID doing this new album. That's how I did a little bit of teaching, and I did a lot of tracking for other people. They would send me tracks to lay down bass on their projects, so I did that. And then I spent most of the rest of the time, doing this album, which I did need a lot of time, and it was a challenge to do logistically because we all couldn't jump in the studio and record together. So, most all of it was done remotely. I'm really happy with the way it turned out because it sounds, you would never know that it was done remotely because the level of musicianship is so good that if you know what you're doing, you can pull it off, doing it remotely and make it sound live. So I was really happy about that. But to your question, yeah, I spent most of my time just recording tracks for other people and doing my thing. Yeah.
So On the Upside is the brand new album, and I'm curious, how does it feel to have this come out now that the world's in a totally different place?
It seems like everything's opening up and people are putting out new stuff, so it feels really good. I mean, and it feels great to be out playing again. So, I mean, from my perspective here in the Bay Area, everything's kind of back to normal. It's nice. I mean, I've been extremely busy, and most of the guys I work with are really busy, and it kind of just feels back to normal. So, it's a nice feeling to get back to normal for sure.
Yeah, it certainly is. So talk to me a little bit about how you artistically put this album together. What was the vision?
Well, I had written most of these tunes I had written like 10 years ago, and I basically didn't have the time or the energy to do a new CD until COVID hit because I was so busy with my sideman duties and doing gigs with other people and stuff. I didn't really have time to go in the studio and record this stuff, but most of the tunes I had written a while ago, and I had all the ideas of what I wanted to do, and a few of the covers that are on the tune I wanted to rearrange. I had those ideas like 10 years ago, and was just looking for an opportunity to have the time to do it. So when COVID hit, it was perfect. It was perfect timing, and it enabled me to finally go do it. So that's kind of how it transpired.
Ultimately, at the end of the day, what are you hoping the listener gets from this album?
Well, I just hope they enjoy it. I mean, I never set out to, I'm not a pop songwriter per se. I'm not a lyricist. So when I write things, I write mostly instrumental tunes. I've written a few tunes with vocals, but I mainly I don't write with an agenda. I just write things that I hear, melodies that pop into my head and stuff, and I put them down on paper and record them. So, and I trust my own standards as to what sounds good. I mean, most of the musicians I work with and myself have been doing this long enough to know what a good tune sounds like and what a good melody is and what good harmony is, and kind of have a sense of what sounds good. So I kind of just trust my own instincts, and if I have a tune that I think, or a tune that I like, I just kind of assume that a lot of other people are going to like it too, and that's kind of been my track record. It's kind of worked out that way. Yeah, I mean, long story short, that's kind of how I write, and how I don't have big expectations of what people need to get out of it, other than I want to put out a really good product that feels and sounds good to me, and if I do that, I think other people will like it too.
So you've been in this music game for a long time. Let's go back to where you were born and raised, and how these seeds and the beginnings of music got into you.
Yeah, I'm from the Bay Area in California, near San Francisco, and I come from my relatives are big country music fans, and my grandfather was a guitar player and did jam sessions with Bob Wills and back in the day and stuff. So he kind of got me in music, and I started off on guitar, and then I started playing upright bass in junior high, and then when I got to high school, I actually wanted to play guitar in the jazz band, but they already had a really good guitarist, so they said, well, would you like to play electric bass? We need a bass player. And I had never played electric bass, but I wanted to be in the band so bad I just said, yeah, sure, I could do that. And so I didn't really start playing electric bass until I was freshman in high school, which I guess 15 or so. So I started playing electric bass then, and just that became my main instrument. I had a real love for electric bass, and dropped the guitar and just kept playing electric bass, and took it up, and and then when I graduated from high school, I went down to the Musicians Institute in LA, and that was a great experience. And from then, just started working in LA, and then moved back to the Bay Area. At some point, I started working back in the Bay Area. I've been up there ever since. Okay. I'm from the Bay Area originally, and I lived in LA for a couple of years, and I moved back to the Bay Area, and I've been there ever since. So yeah, I still reside in the Bay Area.
Okay, cool. Yeah. No, your voice started muffling out, so I just wanted to make sure that we still had the live call. So I'm curious, what's the very first live show you caught that really made you think you wanted to do that with your life, become a musician?
That's a good one. That would take some. I can't even remember the first. Probably would be back in my high school days, but I can't remember the first. I never really went to a lot of big rock concerts when I was in high school. My parents wouldn't let me go. They were really strict, and my brother and I wanted to go. I remember Elvis Presley was at the Palace in San Francisco, and we all wanted to go see Elvis Presley, and my parents wouldn't let us go, and then he died right after that. So I'm trying to remember. I know I went and saw George Benson at the Concord Pavilion, nice big venue, and he lit me up pretty good, and I've been a huge George Benson fan since then. He's one of my favorite guitar players, along with Robin Ford and John Scofield. But when I first saw George Benson, it was really inspiring, his guitar playing and his singing. So that's probably one of the first big shows that I really dug. But also when I was down in LA at the Musicians Institute, we'd go out a lot and hear. That was the big fusion days back in the 80s, and we'd go hear, Jeff Berlin was one of my teachers. I'd go hear him play a lot, and that's when I first got my first exposure to Robin Ford and Larry Carlton. We'd go see them a lot, and Vinnie Colaiuta was playing around town a lot. So all those cats were doing their thing back then. So that was also a really great time to go hear stuff, and it was really inspiring time for me.
So who were some, from the recorded music world when you were really getting your teeth cut? Who were big influences for you?
Well, I grew up listening to, all the Earth, Wind and Fire, Isley Brothers, and Stevie Wonder, in my high school days. So that's what I listened to like everybody else back then. But as far as recordings, when I moved down to LA and was engulfed at the Musicians Institute, I got into the Yellow Jackets a lot. I had met Robin Ford at the school there, and so, like I said, I'd go see him a lot and listen to a lot of the Yellow Jacket stuff, Weather Report, Larry Carlton, a lot of the fusion stuff that was going around in the 80s. We all, that was a big influence on me. I'm trying to think of other bands other than the obvious ones like, the Yellow Jackets and Weather Report, and, George Benson was still going strong then too. Yeah.
Of all of the years spent in the music world for a long, long time, what has consistently been the best part of it? Obviously there's recording, playing live, and teaching, and all of these aspects, but what is it that's always been your favorite part of being a professional musician?
Oh, that's easy. Playing live is by far the most enjoyable part. I teach a little bit. It's not my favorite thing to do. That kind of depends on the student for me, how interested the student is and how gung-ho the student's really into it. I enjoy teaching. But playing, and recording is a whole different thing. I mean, it can be enjoyable and it can be a chore too. It just depends who you're doing it with, and obviously it's more enjoyable if you're doing your own project and your own creative stuff. That's really fun. But by far, playing live is the most enjoyable thing for me, just because it's more of an interaction, communication thing you're getting.
Let me ask you this, just very simply put, why do you love jazz?
Well, I love the improvisational aspect of it. That's the aspect that's different from other musical idioms, is that you get to improvise, and not just from a solo aspect, but just from if you're a bass player, if you're doing walking bass lines and such, you get to create on the spot. And then there's soloing, and that the improvisational aspect of it is not as much apparent in other styles of music. So that's the really fun part of playing jazz. I mean, I play all kinds of music too. I play a lot of pop music and blues and funk and everything, but jazz, when you get to solo and stretch out, that's a unique thing to that idiom. So that's the difference there.
So let me ask you this, kind of based on the years you've been in music and the wisdom we gained. If you were to have a dream tonight, run into your 20-year-old version, you could give that version of you a piece of advice based on the life you've led, what would you tell that young version?
Stick to your own standards and your own values, and don't worry about what other people say. That's the hardest thing for anybody being in the arts, I think, is just to stick to your, have a lot of perseverance and a lot of discipline. It takes a lot of discipline and perseverance to get by in this business. And if you stick to it and you have a passion for it, you'll be fine. And just kind of eliminate the outside noise and what other people's opinions of you are. That's very, that would be my number one piece of advice for a youngster trying to get into the business.
That's great advice. Dewayne, if anyone out there wants to pick up this album, where's the best place to go? And anything, live shows, anything pertaining to your world, where can they go?
Well, I got a new website out. It's Pate, P-A-T-E, PateBass.com. That's my new website. You can find out what I'm about and where I'm playing. You can get download stuff there, but it's on all the regular, iTunes, Amazon, Bandcamp, all that stuff too. So all the usual places, but you can also find it on my new website too.
Wonderful, Dewayne. This has been great, man. Thank you for opening up. Thanks for taking time out. Best of luck with the album and as we move forward.
Thanks, Joe. I appreciate it, man.
Thanks for listening and tuning into another Neon Jazz interview, where we give you a bit of insight into the finest players and minds in San Francisco, Kansas City, and spots all over the world, giving fans all that jazz. Thanks to Dewayne for his time, music, and cool. If you want to hear more interviews, you can find Neon Jazz Archive interviews on Spotify and Apple Podcasts. Subscribe to us at YouTube, and for everything Neon Jazz, go to theneonjazz.blogspot.com. Until next time, enjoy the jazz, my friends.
Neon Jazz.